My daughter hadn't called me for years and turned my grandchildren against me. But as soon as I became rich, threw a lavish party at my new house by the ocean, and posted a photo on social media, she knocked on my door the very next morning and said, "Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments." The phone screen glowed in the February twilight. Read 4:17 p.m. I stared at those two words, that timestamp, feeling something settle in my chest like cold iron. 7 days. I'd given her 7 days to respond, and she'd read my message within an hour. That was almost worse than being ignored completely. I set the phone face down on the kitchen counter, walked to the window. The Pacific stretched gray and restless beyond the worn buildings of my neighborhood. 67 next week. 4 decades practicing maritime law. 15 years since the divorce. 8 years since Lula stopped returning calls entirely. The invitation had taken me 3 attempts to write. The first version was too long, too desperate. The second tried for casual indifference and came out cold. The third, the one I finally sent, was simple. "Lula, I'm turning 67 next week. Would like to see you. Small gathering at my place, Saturday at 2. Just us if you prefer. Dad." No response necessary, really. The silence said everything. I picked up the phone again, flipped it over. Still just read 4:17 p.m. My jaw tightened. I set it down deliberately and walked away. The divorce came back to me in fragments. Claire at the courthouse, Lula beside her, both wearing identical expressions of cold determination. I'd tried to explain my position, the reason for the separation, but Lula held up her hand. "Mom already told me everything," she said. Everything. As if 15 years of marriage could be summarized in one conversation, judged and dismissed. The distance grew gradually. Missed calls became voicemails. Voicemails became texts. Texts became read receipts. Then nothing at all. 5 years ago, I drove to Russell School for a music program, found my seat in the auditorium, waited through the performances. Afterward, in the hallway, I saw Maud standing with Claire. My granddaughter had grown so tall. I approached carefully. "Maud, sweetheart, you've grown so much." She turned away before I finished. Deliberate, practiced. "Mom said not to talk to you," she whispered. I stood there while people flowed around me, while Claire guided Maud toward the exit without a glance in my direction. That was the last time I tried to show up uninvited. The days between sending the invitation and my birthday passed in familiar routine. Morning coffee, reviewing case files for the legal aid clinic where I volunteered, evening walks along the boardwalk. I checked my phone more often than I wanted to admit. Delivered, read, nothing. Saturday morning arrived with pale sunlight through the apartment window. My alarm sounded at 6:30, same as always. I lay in bed for a moment, listening to traffic building outside, then rose and started the coffee maker. The apartment was quiet. I'd lived here 9 years, since downsizing after the divorce settlement. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, a living area with that single window facing west toward the ocean. Modest rent for San Diego, affordable on a retiree's budget. The furniture was practical, nothing extra. A life pared down to essentials. I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the ceramic one with a hairline crack along the handle, and carried it to the chair by the window. Sat down slowly. 67 years. The number felt arbitrary and immense at once. My phone sat on the side table, silent. No messages, no calls. I picked it up, scrolled through contacts out of habit, stopped at Lula's name under favorites. I studied it for a long moment, then pressed edit, removed the star, didn't delete the number entirely. Just moved it down into the general list, alphabetically filed between Legal Aid Office and Marco's Pizza. The gesture felt small and enormous, symbolic, maybe pointless, but something shifted. I drank my coffee slowly, watching the ocean. Waves kept their rhythm, regardless of birthdays, anniversaries, family celebrations happening or not happening in apartments across the city. The water didn't care. It simply was, moving according to laws older than human disappointment. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I played the message back. A former colleague from the maritime law firm, someone I'd worked with decades ago. "Rufus, happy birthday. Hope you're doing well. Give me a call sometime. I deleted the message, didn't call back. The afternoon stretched long. I made a sandwich, ate it standing at the counter, washed the dishes, returned to the chair. The light changed angle, turned golden, then amber, then gray. I sat and watched it all, the coffee cup empty in my hands. 67 years, 40 years practicing law, 15 years divorced, 8 years invisible to my own daughter. This is the last time I wait for her to choose me. Something changed in that moment. I couldn't name it yet, but I felt it. A door closing, another one waiting. The phone rang again, another unknown number. Different from the earlier call. This time, I answered. Mr. Sullivan? The voice was professional, neutral, a woman's voice, carefully modulated. This is Patricia Vance from West Point Notary Services. I'm calling regarding the estate of Harold Chen. I held the phone away from my ear, looked at it, brought it back. Could you repeat that? Harold Chen passed away 6 weeks ago. I'm handling certain aspects of his estate distribution. You're named as a beneficiary. Would you be available to come to our office Monday morning? Harold Chen. The name landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through 20 years of memory. The shipping magnate. The case nobody else would touch. My client when he was barely staying afloat, before the empire, before the wealth. I didn't know he was ill, I said. The family kept it private. Monday at 10, our office is downtown, 6th and Broadway. I agreed, ended the call, set the phone down carefully. Stood at my window as evening settled over San Diego. Harold Chen. I hadn't spoken to him in 15 years, maybe longer. Sent a card when his company went public, received a thank you note. That was the extent of our contact, since the case concluded. Monday morning, I dressed in my better suit, drove downtown through commuter traffic. The notary's office occupied the 3rd floor of a building with mirrored windows. Patricia Vance was mid-50s, efficient, with a manila folder thick with documents. Mr. Chen left specific instructions, she said, sliding papers across the desk. The property at Point Loma goes to you, with gratitude for services rendered in 2005. I looked at the papers, property deed, assessment documents, photographs of a 3-story house perched above the ocean, all glass and white stone, numbers that didn't make sense. Why me? We hadn't spoken in 15 years. She extracted a letter from the folder, handwritten on heavy paper. His letter states you saved his business when no one else would take the case. He never forgot. I read Chen's words carefully. The case had been complex, international shipping law, jurisdictional disputes, a contract written in 3 languages with conflicting clauses. Other attorneys had refused it. Chen couldn't pay much initially. I'd taken it pro bono because the legal questions interested me, because it was the right thing to do. The victory was narrow but complete. His small company survived, then grew, then exploded into something none of us had anticipated. The property assessment listed the value at $4.2 million. I read that number 3 times. This is accurate? I asked. Appraised last month. Point Loma oceanfront. The market's strong. 40 years of law, modest salary, careful savings, and now this. All because I did my job well once. The following week blurred into paperwork, title transfer, tax documents, property inspection. I drove to Point Loma on Wednesday to view the house. The neighborhood was nothing like my apartment complex. Quiet streets, architectural distinction, gardens maintained by professionals. The house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, commanding views north and west. I parked, walked to the front door, stopped with my hand on the doorframe, took a deliberate breath before entering. The interior was elegant without being ostentatious. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, walls of windows facing the ocean. 3 levels, each one larger than my entire apartment. A study on the main floor, Chen's old desk still positioned to face the water. Kitchen with commercial-grade appliances, master suite occupying the entire top floor. I walked through slowly, methodically, touching surfaces, checking views, assessing. This wasn't just a house. This was a statement, a position, a tool. On the terrace, I stood at the railing, watched waves crash against the rocks below. Different from my apartment view. This wasn't observation from a distance. This was power-made architectural. By month's end, I'd completed the transfer, called my building manager. I'll be out by month's end. Yes, I found another place. Moving day required only 2 trips in my sedan: clothes, books, the cracked coffee mug, my laptop, a box of legal files. I carried everything inside myself, didn't hire movers. The emptiness of the house swallowed my belongings. They looked absurd in all that space. That first evening, I stood on the terrace as sunset painted the sky orange and purple. The air smelled of salt and money. Down the street, lights glowed in windows of houses worth millions. My neighbors were executives, surgeons, people who'd spent lifetimes accumulating wealth. I'd received mine in a single inheritance from a grateful client. Inside, I sat at Chen's desk, opened my laptop. Searched for Lula's social media. She had Facebook, rarely posted, but the account was active. She checked it. Everyone did. She'd see updates from mutual connections, from people in our old circles. She hadn't called in 8 years, but she watched social media. Everyone does. I opened a fresh tab, searched for event planning services, a housewarming party. Something visible, something she couldn't ignore, even if she wanted to. I pulled out a legal pad, the kind I'd used for 40 years of case preparation, drew a line down the center. On the left, people to invite. On the right, what I needed to reveal and when. The lawyer's precision applied to personal matters, strategic thinking, evidence gathering, calculated exposure. Let's see what she's really looking for. I started writing names. April arrived with clear skies and steady winds off the Pacific. I'd been in the house 6 weeks now, long enough to establish routines, to learn which floorboards creaked, which windows caught the best light, long enough to know my neighbors' schedules, to wave at the yacht club members heading to the marina each morning, long enough to plan. I sat at Chen's desk, reviewing the guest list one final time. 43 names, each one selected with purpose. Former colleagues from the maritime firm who'd respected my work. Neighbors from Point Loma who represented this new tier of society. Acquaintances from the yacht club where I'd joined as a social member. People who would talk, who would post photos, who would spread the word about Rufus Sullivan's remarkable change in circumstances. The caterers arrived at 4. I walked through the house checking details while they set up. Crystal champagne flutes arranged on the terrace table. Hors d'oeuvres prepared with precision. $300 bottles of Dom Perignon chilling in silver buckets. The detail mattered, the visibility of it. A string quartet would arrive at 6 to play on the lower terrace. Everything calculated, everything visible. Mamie Wallace appeared at 5:30, early as promised. My neighbor from 3 houses down, former notary, 62 years sharp and observant. She'd brought flowers. "You didn't need to do that," I said. "First party in a new house deserves flowers." She looked past me into the living room. "This is going to be quite an event. Just sharing good fortune." Something in her expression shifted. "Is that what we're calling it?" I adjusted my tie, checked my watch. Guests arrive at 6. The first guests arrived precisely on time. I greeted them at the door, shook hands firmly, guided them through the house with practiced warmth. The tour was choreographed, living room first, then the kitchen with its view, finally the terrace where the ocean crashed against rocks below. Each guest's reaction followed a pattern: initial amazement, questions about how I'd acquired the property, compliments on my good fortune. "Life has unexpected turns," I told them. "Sometimes doing the right thing pays off years later." By 7, the house hummed with conversation and quartet music. I moved between groups, pouring champagne, asking about careers and families, performing the role of gracious host. The lawyer's bearing served me well. Confidence without arrogance, attention without intrusion. But Mamie watched. She caught me between conversations, touched my elbow lightly. "You seem tense. Just want everyone to enjoy themselves. First time hosting here." "That's not what I'm seeing." I looked at her directly. "I'm sharing good fortune. Nothing wrong with that." She held my gaze for a moment, then nodded and moved away. But I'd seen the recognition in her eyes. She understood performance when she saw it. By 10, guests were departing. Handshakes, thanks, praise for the house and the evening. I accepted it all graciously, stood at the door waving as cars pulled away down the quiet street. Mamie stayed to help clean. We worked in comfortable silence, collecting glasses, consolidating leftover food. The caterers had taken most of their equipment, leaving the house almost as it had been. Almost. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, Walked to the terrace, framed a shot of the house lit from within, ocean dark beyond. Another from the living room, showing the space, the furniture, the art on walls. Close-up of the champagne setup, bottles visible with their labels. The terrace view looking north toward the marina. Yachts lined up like white sentinels. Mamie folded napkins slowly, watching. I reviewed the photos, selected the best ones, opened Facebook, typed the caption carefully. New life begins at 67. Grateful for unexpected gifts. Point Loma. Ocean view, a new chapter. Deleted it. Rewrote. New life begins at 67. Grateful for unexpected gifts. Point Loma. Ocean view, new chapter. The same words, but now I was certain. My finger hovered over the post button. Mamie had stopped folding. That caption. You chose those words carefully. I chose everything carefully. I pressed post. Set the phone face up on the counter. She checks. She always checks. Your daughter? I nodded. And you want her to see this? I poured myself a glass of water, drank it slowly. I want her to see exactly this. The phone screen showed, your post is live. I looked at Mamie. Now we wait. How long? I checked the wall clock, 11:15. Not long. She checks every night before bed. I walked to the window, looked out at the dark ocean. Tomorrow morning, I expect. The house was quiet now, clean, ready. I didn't say for what, but Mamie understood. I'd prepared for company, unwanted company. I slept well that night. No anxiety, no second thoughts, just readiness. Morning arrived with pale light through the bedroom windows. I descended to the kitchen, ground coffee beans, boiled water, performed the ritual with methodical precision. The house felt larger in the early quiet, spaces opening around me like held breath. I was checking my phone casually, email, news headlines, when I heard it. Car doors slamming, multiple car doors. I set the phone down, walked to the window, parted the curtain slightly. A silver SUV sat in my driveway, doors open, people emerging, 4 figures, luggage visible in the back. I recognized the vehicle, recognized Lula even from this distance, the way she moved with determined purpose, Mitchell beside her, the kids trailing behind. Right on schedule, I said to the empty kitchen. The knocking started before I reached the door. Loud, demanding, not the polite knock of a visitor asking permission. I took my time crossing the entryway, straightened my shoulders, composed my face, opened the door. Lula stood on my threshold for the first time in 8 years. Red-faced, hair disheveled from overnight driving, dressed in wrinkled travel clothes. Mitchell behind her, looking tired but attempting authority. Maud staring at her phone. Russell holding a backpack, eyes uncertain. No greeting. Dad, you're selfish. How could you not tell me you got rich? I stood in the doorway, taking in the scene. Suitcases, overnight bags, backpacks. They'd packed for a stay, not a visit. I accidentally saw your post. Accidentally. You didn't even think to tell your own daughter about the inheritance? She gestured wildly behind her, toward the house. About our family house? Family house? The phrase hung in the air between us. I looked at Mitchell. He stepped forward slightly, attempting to appear paternal. Really unethical, Rufus. Family should know about these things. We drove through the night, Lula added. I was so upset. Russell's eyes met mine briefly. Recognition flickered there. Grandfather seen for the first time in 5 years. Then he looked away. Maud never looked up from her phone at all. My lawyer's mind cataloged it all. 4 people, 6 pieces of luggage visible. Overnight drive meant they'd seen the post around 11 p.m., packed immediately, drove 7 hours. Arrived at 8 in the morning, exhausted but determined. Came to claim what they believed was theirs. Family house? I said quietly. Yes, we're family. Lula was already dragging a suitcase forward. 8 years, not one call. Now here she stood, luggage in hand, calling my inheritance ours. I stepped backward, let my expression transform. Neutral to warm, the shift deliberate as pulling on a mask. Sweetheart, of course, come in. I opened my arms. I'm so happy to see you. All of you. What a surprise. Lula hesitated, thrown by the sudden warmth. Mitchell's authoritative expression faltered, but they'd committed to coming, to claiming space, and backing down now would mean admitting the motive. Let me help with those bags, I said, reaching for a suitcase. They entered, Lula first, scanning the interior with assessing eyes, Mitchell following, trying to reclaim his authoritative bearing, Maud and Russell trailing behind, teenagers uncertain in unfamiliar territory. I closed the door behind them, the soft click of the lock. They were already dispersing through the main floor, Lula's voice carrying from the hallway. Which bedroom should we take? Mitchell followed her deeper into the house. The kids stood in the entryway, surrounded by luggage, looking lost. I turned, saw them claiming space, already treating the house as theirs. My smile stayed fixed. "Let me show you around," I said. 8 years of silence, 12 hours after one post. She was exactly who I thought she was. Now let's see how long she can maintain the act. I followed them deeper into the house, performing the proud father. The game was in motion. I woke early the next morning, descended the stairs to find Lula already in the living room, moving furniture. Chen's reading chair, the one positioned by the window, she dragged it to the corner. The coffee table rotated 90 degrees. My law books, stacked neatly on the side table, now shoved into a cardboard box. "Just making it more comfortable for all of us, Dad." She didn't look up. "You don't mind, right?" I poured coffee, said nothing, watched her rearrange my life. The takeover had begun. The days blurred together. By the third morning, the guest bedroom had transformed completely. Their suitcases unpacked, clothes hanging in the closet, Mitchell's shoes lined up by the door. Our room, Lula called it now, not the guest room, ours. Mitchell started approaching me about money on day 5, found me on the terrace reading. "Rufus, with your legal background, you understand investment potential. I have an opportunity." I listened, nodded. Let him talk about his idea, some tech startup, some friend's venture. 5,000 to start, he said, just to show faith. "Tell me more about this opportunity," I said. "I'm listening." My phone in my shirt pocket recorded everything. California's single-party consent law meant I only needed my own permission. By the end of the first week, Russell had commandeered the television. Gaming marathons that started after breakfast, continued until dinner. The massive screen filled with explosions, sounds, his fingers rapid on the controller. "Grandpa, can you get premium streaming? The connection's kinda slow for my games." "Maybe," I said. "Let me look into it." I photographed him there, sprawled across the leather sofa, controller in hand, energy drink on the coffee table, evidence of appropriation, making himself at home in someone else's house. Maud spent day 9 on the terrace taking selfies. Different poses, different angles, the ocean backdrop perfect for her feed. This light is perfect. My followers are going to die when they see this view. She showed me her phone screen proudly. "Do Grandpa Mansion trending in my circle, 200 likes already." I smiled. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Photographed the screen over her shoulder while she scrolled. Mitchell escalated on day 10, found me in the study, closed the door behind him. 75,000 for the startup. I've done the research. This is solid, Rufus. You'd be an investor, not just lending. I pulled out my notebook, wrote down the number, asked questions about returns, timelines, risk assessment, acted interested. "That's significant. Let me think about it." His frustration showed. "Come on, we're living under your roof. Least you could do is help us build our future." I kept my expression neutral. I said I'll think about it. After he left, I added the request to my list. Day 3, 5,000 mentioned. Day 7, 25,000 suggested. Day 10, 75,000 demanded. Pattern established. Escalation documented. The second week brought more changes. Lula hosted a planning session at the dining table with Mitchell, discussing future family gatherings. "I was thinking we could host Thanksgiving here, the whole family. Doesn't that sound wonderful?" Mitchell and I were discussing. Maybe we could convert that back bedroom into a home office, for when we're here. When we're here, not if, when. I cooked breakfast most mornings, scrambled eggs, toast, fruit arranged on plates, asked them about their lives, their plans, their days, smiled, engaged, played the role of welcoming father. The recording device captured it all. Day 14 arrived with clear skies. I made my special dinner, roasted chicken, vegetables, salad from the farmer's market. Set the table carefully, opened good wine. We sat together, the 5 of us, passing dishes and making small talk. Russell talked about his gaming tournament, Maud showed photos from her latest post. Mitchell mentioned a networking event. Then Lula, relaxed from wine and comfort, said it. "You know, Dad, I honestly thought you'd die in that shabby apartment without a penny." She laughed. Good thing Chen turned out to be decent. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Shabby apartment, without a penny. I set the fork down carefully, looked at her. "Good thing," I repeated. She didn't notice my tone. "What?" "I'm just being honest. We're family now. We can be honest." Family now. Not family for the past 8 years. Family now that I had money. Chen was indeed a decent person, I said, measured and controlled. The conversation moved on, but I'd heard enough. After dinner, I excused myself, went to the study, closed the door, exhaled deeply, dropped the mask for the first time in 2 weeks, downloaded the day's recordings to my laptop, organized files by date, created a timeline, 2 weeks, 15 documented incidents, 7 financial requests totaling $120,000, multiple photographs of appropriation, and now, the confession. I put on headphones, listened to Lula's voice again. Shabby apartment without a penny. My expression grew colder with each replay. Opened my notebook, wrote 2 weeks, 15 documented incidents, 7 financial requests totaling $120,000. 1 confession, enough. I closed the laptop, opened the desk calendar, circled a date in early May, 3 days from now. Below it, I wrote, "Terrace, morning, Lula alone. Time for a conversation." I returned the notebook to the locked drawer, pocketed the key. The evidence was secure. The trap was ready. Tomorrow I'd extend an invitation, a private talk about family future. She'd accept eagerly. She always took what was offered, and greed makes people predictable. 3 days later, I found my moment. Breakfast scattered the family through the house. Mitchell on his laptop in the study, door half open. Kids still sleeping upstairs. Lula in the living room with design magazines, planning something. I approached her. "I'd like to talk, just us. This morning, on the terrace." She looked up, curious, slightly wary. "About what?" "About family, about the future, about this house." The wariness vanished, replaced by eager interest. "Of course, Dad. Give me 20 minutes? I nodded. "I'll make coffee." She smiled. She thought she knew where this was going. I prepared carefully. 2 cups, precise pour. Carried the tray to the terrace, positioned the chairs angled toward the ocean, side by side, less confrontational. Pulled out my notepad, clicked the pen. The recording device in my pocket hummed silently. Lula arrived wearing a nice blouse, hair styled. She'd prepared for an important conversation. "So what's this about, Dad? You sounded serious." I gestured for her to sit, handed her coffee. "Sweetheart, I've been thinking. You're my only daughter. I want you to feel at home here." I paused. "Let's discuss how we can share this house." Her face brightened. "Oh, Dad, I'm so glad you finally understand. I want us all to be comfortable here. I'm glad you're open to this conversation. What did you have in mind?" She leaned forward, animated now. "Actually, Mitchell and I were thinking, what if you transferred the house to my name for estate planning purposes? You know, avoiding inheritance taxes later." There it was, not, "Can we build a relationship?" "Just give me the house," I wrote in the notepad. Nodded as if seriously considering. "You could still live here, of course," she continued. "But legally, it would be mine. Protects the family asset." Interesting idea. Estate taxes are significant. I looked up from my notes. "But what would you offer in return?" She blinked. "In return? Dad, I'm your daughter. It's natural to pass property to your children. That's what parents do. Natural for children who maintained relationships, not for ones who vanished." I set the pen down, turned my chair to face her directly. "Natural, yes." I paused. "Natural like not answering my calls for 8 years? Natural like turning my grandchildren into strangers?" Her posture stiffened, arms crossed. "Don't start this again. I'm not relitigating the divorce. I'm asking what relationship we actually have. You left Mom. You chose to leave the family. I was protecting myself and my kids from the drama. You can't blame me for that." I let the silence stretch, watched her defensive expression, the tight jaw, the entitled certainty that she deserved this despite everything. Here's my proposal. I extended my hand. 2 months until end of June. Live here. If we genuinely become family in that time, not just housemates, I'll consider your request. She relaxed slightly. 2 months? That's all? Real family, honest conversations, actual connection, not just convenience. Dad, of course we'll be a real family. We already are. She took my hand, shook it confidently. This is going to work out perfectly. You'll see. She thought 2 months was easy. She had no idea what real family required. We stood, walked back through the terrace doors into the house. Mitchell immediately approached. Well, what was that about? Lula glowed. Dad and I had a wonderful talk. We're going to work on being a real family. And, she lowered her voice, 2 months, if it goes well, he'll consider future arrangements. Mitchell's eyes narrowed, calculating. I passed them, heading to the kitchen. I need to make some calls, family business. Lula didn't notice the emphasis, didn't catch the look I gave Mitchell, assessing, cataloging. She was already on her phone, texting. I saw from the kitchen doorway. Just talk to Dad. I think we're going to get the house. I turned away, permitted myself the smallest smile. The countdown had begun. She had 2 months to prove she was family. I had 2 months to prove she wasn't. And I was the one with evidence. I set the dining table carefully, plates aligned precisely. Silverware positioned according to old rules my mother taught me. Napkins folded into triangles, everything deliberate. Lula watched from the kitchen doorway. This is nice, Dad, like old times. There were no old times like this. We'd never had family dinners, never sat together with warmth and conversation. But I didn't say that. I thought we should eat together, really talk. She smiled, missing the edge in those words. The family gathered. I sat at the head of the table, recording device in my shirt pocket, switched on. Notebook on the sideboard, within reach. This wasn't dinner, this was deposition. Russell, I'm curious. I passed him the bread basket. What did your mother tell you about me, about why we don't see each other? He glanced at Lula, uncertain. She went very still. Well, he took a role, buying time. Mom said you abandoned Grandma when she got sick, and that you never gave her money to take care of us. I cut my chicken calmly, chewed, swallowed. Interesting. Your grandmother was never seriously ill, and I never denied anyone money. Lula interrupted. Dad, let's not ruin dinner with old history. I reached to the sideboard, retrieved the folder I'd positioned there before dinner, opened it, spread bank statements across the table. I paid child support, $2,200 every month, until Maud turned 18. I looked at the children. Would you like to see the records? Russell stared at the papers. Maud looked at her mother, questioning. It's important to know the truth about family history, don't you think? The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. The days that followed, I maintained pressure, scheduled an appointment with my estate planning attorney, announced it casually over breakfast. We're meeting with my lawyer next Tuesday. All of you should come. It concerns the family. Lula perked up immediately. About the house? About estate planning, legal matters everyone should understand. Tuesday arrived. The family dressed carefully, thinking this was about securing their inheritance. We drove downtown to the attorney's office in my sedan. No one spoke. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. My attorney, Douglas Pierce, 50s, silver-haired, carried the authority of 30 years practicing estate law. Mr. Sullivan has engaged me for estate planning. As his family, you should understand the legal framework. He opened a leather folder, read from notes. Under California law, property inherited by one individual is that person's separate property. It's not community property, not family property. Lula shifted in her seat. This means Mr. Sullivan's Point Loma residence belongs solely to him. His adult daughter has no legal rights to it. But we're family, Lula stood, chair scraping back. This house should belong to all of us. Pierce didn't stand, remained seated, calm authority radiating. Mrs. Woods, legally speaking, you are an independent adult. You have no claim to your father's assets. You don't understand our situation. I'm his only daughter. Mitchell touched her arm. She shook him off. Dad, tell him. Tell him we're working things out. I steepled my fingers. I can change my will whenever I choose, if I see reasons that warrant it. Pierce nodded. Mr. Sullivan may dispose of his property as he wishes. That includes changing beneficiaries at any time. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. We filed out silently. In the parking lot, Mitchell stopped me. Was that really necessary? Bringing in lawyers? I believe in transparency. Now everyone knows where we stand. The drive home was silent. I watched them in the rearview mirror, Maud staring out the window, Russell looking at his hands, Mitchell and Lula exchanging glances, wheels turning, schemes forming. Good. Let them sit with that. Let them understand how precarious their position really is. Back at the house, I went to my study, closed the door, opened the calendar on my desk. June was nearly over, the trial period almost complete. I made a note. Week 1st. July, implement phase 3. Outside, I heard Mitchell and Lula arguing in hushed voices. Couldn't hear words, but tone was clear. Anger, fear, desperation. I opened my laptop, began typing an email to former colleagues from the firm. Dear friends, I'd like to invite you to visit my new home in Point Loma. 7 days. They had 7 days before my friends arrived, and they'd need to vacate the guest room. Time to see how they react when asked to sacrifice even the smallest comfort. I hit send. The following Monday, I entered the kitchen at breakfast. Casual morning. Weekend just ended. The family relaxed, Mitchell scrolling news on his tablet, Lula texting someone, kids eating cereal while staring at their phones. The comfortable domesticity of people who believed they belonged. I poured coffee slowly. Let the silence build. Sipped it. Tasted the bitterness. I've invited some old colleagues from the firm. They're visiting next week for several days. Lula barely looked up from her phone. That's nice, Dad. They'll need the guest room. You'll have to move out temporarily. I added cream to my coffee with deliberate care, stirred with a spoon that clinked against ceramic. There are good hotels nearby. I'll cover the costs naturally. Fork clattered against plate, the sound sharp in the sudden stillness. Lula's head snapped up, her phone forgotten on the table. What did you just say? My friends need accommodation. The guest room, your room, is the appropriate space for them. I took another sip. Several hotels within 15 minutes offer excellent amenities. I'll make reservations if you'd like. Hotel? You want us to go to a hotel? I remained standing, coffee cup steady in my hand. It's only for a week, maybe 10 days depending on their schedule. This is our home. You can't just kick us out. I set the cup down carefully on the granite counter, the sound precise, final. This is my home. You are guests here. We discussed this with the attorney, remember? The legal framework was quite clear. Mitchell stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. He approached me with what he probably thought was authoritative bearing. Rufus, let's step aside and talk, man to man, privately. We can talk right here. I didn't move, didn't give ground. Nothing to hide from the family. His jaw tightened. A vein pulsed at his temple. You said you'd help with the business opportunity, the startup. We're counting on that funding. We've made plans based on your word. I promised to think about the loan. I've thought about it extensively. I paused, let him hope. My answer is no. That's not fair. We've been good guests. We've been respectful. We deserve consideration. I pulled my small notebook from my pocket, the leather worn from handling, opened to a marked page. Mitchell, do you know how many times you've asked me for money in the 2 months you've been here? His expression shifted, confusion, then wariness. 17 times, I counted, documented every single request. I turned the notebook so he could see. Tally marks in my careful handwriting, dates beside each one, amounts when specified, $5,000 for initial investment, $25,000 for expansion capital, $75,000 for the big startup opportunity, smaller requests scattered between, $2,000 for car repairs, $3,000 for credit card debt, $1,500 for Maud's phone. Every single request, time, date, amount, reason given. You've been tracking, his voice rose. That's manipulative. That's surveillance. It's called paying attention. It's called documentation. Lawyers do it professionally. I merely applied professional skills to personal circumstances. Maud started crying, loud, dramatic teenage sobs. Grandpa, you're being mean. Why are you doing this to us? We haven't done anything wrong. I looked at her directly, didn't soften my expression. Perhaps I am mean, But this mean grandfather has housed you free for 3 months, fed you, paid utilities, absorbed the cost of your presence without complaint. We thought you wanted us here." Her voice broke, tears streaming down her face. "You acted like you were happy. Market rent for this property is $12,000 per month. I checked comparable properties." I let the number sit. 3 months, $36,000 you owe me, minimum. That's not counting utilities, food, or the wear on furnishings. Silence, complete, stunned. Mitchell's face had gone red. Lula's pale. "You can't seriously expect us to pay rent." Mitchell's voice cracked. "That's absurd. We're family." "I expect nothing. I'm simply stating facts for clarity." I picked up my coffee again. "You've lived here free while asking me for money 17 separate times. The irony is rather sharp, don't you think?" Lula moved toward me, hand reaching out as if to touch my arm. The gesture practiced. "Dad, you're really going to choose strangers over your own daughter? Over your grandchildren?" I stepped back, subtle but definitive, maintained the physical boundary. "They're not strangers. They're respected colleagues, friends who've known me for decades, people who called when I moved, who asked about my well-being, who maintained connection." Her hand dropped. "You'll be alone again. Do you really want that? An empty house? No family around?" The question hung between us. The emotional manipulation transparent. Make him fear solitude. Make him need us. Make him vulnerable. "I've been alone for 8 years, sweetheart. I'm quite accustomed to it." I held her gaze. Alone is different from lonely. I learned that distinction well. She went pale, the words landing exactly as intended. Russell spoke softly from his seat at the table. "Did you really pay child support, like you said at dinner, all those years? Every month, $2,200 for 13 years, from when you were born until Maud turned 18. I kept my voice gentle for him. He was asking honest questions. "The bank has records, canceled checks, electronic transfers, all documented. But Mom said, your mother said many things. Some of them weren't true. That's not your fault. You believed what you were told. Children trust their parents. That's natural." Lula's voice turned cold, sharp. "You've changed. You're not the father I remember. This isn't the man I grew up with." "You're correct. I'm not the father who waited by the phone for calls that never came, who accepted silence as normal, who let himself be erased from his grandchildren's lives without protest." I picked up my coffee cup, drained the last of it. "The friends arrive in 7 days. Make your arrangements. I can recommend several hotels if you need suggestions." I walked away, left them standing in the kitchen, voices erupting behind me. Lula's angry, Mitchell's aggressive, Maud's crying escalating. I closed the study door, the sound muffled but audible. Good. Let them process, let them panic. Sat at the desk. Opened a laptop. The calendar showed July 7th. The trial period had ended a week ago. June 30th came and went without acknowledgement from them. No attempt to discuss what the 2 months meant. No recognition that they were being tested. They'd failed. Failed honesty. Failed reciprocity. Failed genuine connection. Failed every measure that mattered. Now came consequence. Measured. Legal. Unavoidable. I drafted an email to Douglas Pierce. "Douglas, need to discuss formal eviction process. Family guests have overstayed welcome despite clear terms discussed. Require notice to vacate per California law. Please advise on proper timeline and legal procedure. Available to meet this week at your convenience. Rufus." My finger hovered over send. Not yet. Strategy required patience. Let them experience the hotel displacement first. Let them feel temporary status in their bones. Let them understand that my hospitality wasn't permanent, wasn't guaranteed, could be withdrawn. Then deliver the final blow. I saved the draft in a folder labeled Legal Actions. Outside my door, voices rose, family arguing among themselves, blame ricocheting, accusations flying, panic seeping into every word. "This is your fault. You said he'd help us. I can't believe he's been tracking. What are we supposed to do now?" I listened without emotion, without satisfaction or cruelty, just clinical observation. This is what happens when entitlement meets reality, when manipulation encounters boundaries, when greed faces justice. The hammer hasn't even fallen yet. This was just displacement, temporary inconvenience, a warning shot. The real eviction would come soon. Legal, formal, permanent. But first, let them sit with this. Let them understand how precarious their position truly was. Let them realize that every comfort they had claimed could be revoked. I opened a new document, began listing everything: dates of arrival, documented appropriations, recorded conversations, financial requests, lies exposed, building the complete record, the lawyer in me preparing the case. Outside, their voices finally quieted, footsteps on stairs, doors closing, the house settling into tense silence. I looked at the calendar again. 7 days until the colleagues arrived. 7 days for the family to pack, to search for hotels, to feel the instability of being guests rather than residents. Then, 30 days after that, the formal eviction, the legal ending. Justice has a timeline, a structure, a proper procedure, and I would follow it precisely. 3 weeks crawled by with excruciating tension. The family had gone to a hotel for 6 days, returned subdued and watchful. They moved through the house like people walking on ice, careful not to make sudden movements, monitoring my mood, trying to gauge what came next. They didn't have to wait long. Early August arrived with marine layer fog that burned off by 10 each morning. On the 5th, a knock sounded at the door. Mid-morning, August sunshine had just broken through. I set down my coffee, walked to the entrance already knowing what I'd find. Process server, young woman, professional demeanor, clipboard in hand. Legal documents for Lula Sullivan Woods. I signed the receipt, my signature familiar, practiced from decades of legal work. The envelope was thick, official. The weight of it substantial in my hands. I carried it to the kitchen where Lula sat scrolling her phone, coffee steaming beside her, oblivious. Set it on the table in front of her without a word. The manila envelope landed with a soft thud. She looked up from her phone, questioning. "What's this?" I didn't answer, just stood there, watching, waiting. Let her open it herself. Let her read the words with her own eyes. No filter, no interpretation, just legal reality. Her hands shook slightly as she pulled out the documents, unfolded them. Her eyes scanned the first page. Then her face drained of all color, lips parted, breath caught. Notice to vacate in bold letters at the top. California legal form, standard language. 30 days to remove herself and all family members from premises. Specific date, September 4th. Consequences of non-compliance listed in detail. Dad, what is this? 30 days, that's California law. Sufficient time to find appropriate housing. Her voice rose, shrill. This is an eviction notice? You're actually evicting us? The document is self-explanatory. You have 30 days from service of notice, today, to vacate the premises. This isn't negotiable. The attorney has filed all necessary paperwork with the county. The process is in motion. Her hand trembled holding the document. Pages rustled. You can't do this. We're family. You can't just throw us out on the street. The law disagrees with your assessment. Adult children have no legal right to occupy their parents' property without consent. My consent is withdrawn. Mitchell appeared in the doorway, attracted by Lula's raised voice. What's going on? She thrust the papers at him. He's evicting us. He actually filed legal papers. Mitchell read quickly, face hardening. This is extreme, Rufus. Completely unnecessary. We can work this out like adults. This is adults working it out through proper legal channels, clear documentation, appropriate notice. We have rights, Lula's voice cracked. You can't just... What rights specifically? I kept my tone conversational. You're not tenants with a lease. You're guests who were invited for a trial period that ended July 1st. That period concluded over a month ago. You've remained without renewed invitation. Within hours, she'd hired a lawyer. I knew she would. Desperation makes people predictable. The attorney called my cell phone that afternoon while I was reviewing case files at my desk. Mr. Sullivan, this is Gregory Marsh. I represent Lula Woods regarding your recent eviction notice. Mr. Marsh. I set down my pen, gave him complete attention. My client feels there was an understanding between you, a family arrangement. She's alleging elder abuse, that you've been manipulated into this action. Additionally, she contends the eviction is wrongful given the family relationship and promises made. I listened calmly, let him finish his entire pitch. Lawyer to lawyer, professional courtesy demanded it. Your client has no legal standing. She's an adult guest who overstayed her welcome. I have documentation supporting this position. My client feels there was an implied agreement. Feelings aren't contracts, Mr. Marsh. I assume you explained that to her during your consultation? Brief pause. Well, yes, but I have recordings of every relevant conversation. California is a single-party consent state for audio recording. I was party to every discussion. The recordings are admissible. Longer pause. I see. You have recordings of what nature? Every money request your client's husband made. 17 separate requests totaling over $120,000. Recordings of your client making false statements about me to my grandchildren. Recordings of her claiming the house as family property, despite knowing the legal reality. Recordings of appropriation discussions. Everything documented. Single-party consent, I understand. His tone had shifted. Professional calculation. That does complicate matters. I also have photographic evidence of unauthorized changes to the property, witnesses who can testify to their behavior, bank records showing child support paid consistently for 13 years, contradicting claims made to the grandchildren. A comprehensive file, Mr. Marsh. I'll need to discuss this with my client. Please do. The notice stands. 30 days. I've offered to help with moving expenses if needed. I'm not interested in causing hardship, just in reclaiming my home. I'll advise my client accordingly. Good day, Mr. Sullivan. The line went dead. I sat back in my chair, looked out the window at the ocean, waves steady, constant, indifferent to human drama. That same week, I visited Douglas Pierce's office downtown, took the elevator to the 7th floor, walked past the receptionist who knew me now, smiled recognition. Pierce stood when I entered his conference room, shook my hand. Rufus, the eviction notice has been served. This morning, her attorney called this afternoon, man named Gregory Marsh. Do you know him? Family law, decent attorney. He'll realize quickly that the case is hopeless. Pierce gestured to the chair. Now, you mentioned changing your will? I sat. Complete revision. I want the entire estate to go to charity. He pulled out his legal pad, began making notes. Which organization? Children's Advocacy Fund, specifically programs supporting single-parent families. Kids who grow up with one parent who fought to stay involved despite barriers. Pierce's pen paused. He looked up, understood. That's very specific. It's very personal. We spent 2 hours going through details. Executor designations. Backup beneficiaries if the primary charity dissolved. Distribution timelines. Tax implications. Pierce was thorough, as always. Not a dollar to your daughter, he confirmed. Not a cent. She made her choices. This is mine. She could contest the will, claim undue influence, diminish capacity. Hence the recordings, the documentation, the evidence of my sound mind and clear intent. Let her try. The evidence will destroy any claim. Pierce nodded slowly. You've thought this through. I'm a lawyer, Douglas. Of course I've thought it through. The new will was signed, witnessed, notarized, filed properly. Copies secured in 3 different locations. Irreversible unless I chose to change it again. When I returned home that evening, Mitchell was waiting. He'd positioned himself in the living room, clearly lying in wait. Ambush positioning. Rufus, we need to talk. I set my briefcase down. About? This eviction. It's a mistake. You're making a huge mistake. I don't believe I am. He stood, approached with aggressive posture, shoulders forward, chin up, trying to intimidate through physical presence. I know people, Rufus. Lawyers better than your guy. We can fight this. We can make it very expensive for you. Very public. I removed my jacket, hung it carefully on the coat rack. Please do. Public litigation means public records. Discovery, depositions, everything exposed. I'll tell everyone the truth about you. His voice rose. Your colleagues, your neighbors, the yacht club, the whole community will know what kind of person you really are. I turned to face him fully. Tell them exactly this. I allowed my estranged daughter and her family to live rent-free in my home for 3 months. I provided them every comfort. I tested whether they wanted relationship or resources. They chose resources. I asked them to leave. They refused. I followed proper legal channels. What part of that makes me the villain? That's not... You're twisting things, making it sound... I pulled the notebook from my pocket. It was becoming a prop, a symbol, opened it to the marked pages. Tell them about the 17 times you asked me for money, Mitchell. Tell them about demanding a $75,000 startup loan from a man you hadn't seen in 8 years. Tell them about calling my inheritance family property 12 hours after arriving. He stared at the tally marks, the dates, the amounts. All there in black ink, undeniable. Better yet, I can provide recordings, audio documentation of every conversation. California permits single-party consent recording. I was party to every conversation, every request, every assumption of entitlement, all captured, all admissible in court. You recorded us? His face reddened. That's illegal. That's invasion of privacy. California Penal Code Section 632. One-party consent. Perfectly legal. As both you and your wife's attorney have now learned. His aggression deflated like punctured balloon. Shoulders sagged, the fight draining visibly. You planned this from the beginning. You never intended to help us. This was all, what? Some kind of test? Some sick game? I gave you a genuine chance. 2 months to prove you wanted family, not money. Every interaction was your choice. Every word you spoke was your decision. You failed on your own merits. I just documented the failure. Lula was right about you. His voice turned bitter. You're cold, calculating, heartless. Perhaps. But I'm cold and calculating in my own home. You're cold and calculating in someone else's home. We are not the same. He turned away, started toward the stairs, then stopped. The kids are confused, upset. They don't understand what's happening. The children are welcome to understand the truth. I've offered to explain everything to them honestly. Your wife declined that offer. They think you're being cruel. They think what they've been told to think. When they're older, they can decide for themselves. The final week of August arrived like a countdown. Boxes began appearing, brown cardboard towers stacked in the guest room, the hallway, by the front door, packing tape dispensers, markers, the physical evidence of departure. I watched from distance, didn't offer to help, didn't hinder, just observed. One afternoon, I found the grandchildren in the backyard. They sat together on the stone bench near the garden, talking in low voices. Russell saw me first, elbowed Maud. They went silent. I approached slowly, non-threatening. Sat on the other end of the bench, leaving space between us. May I talk with you both? They exchanged glances. Russell nodded. Okay. I want you to understand something. This situation, the eviction, everything happening, it's not about you. You're not being punished. Maud's eyes were red-rimmed. It feels like punishment. I imagine it does, but you're children. You believed what your mother told you. That's what children do. That's normal and right. Mom says you're being mean. Her voice small. She says you changed. Your mother is partially correct. I have changed. I used to accept silence and distance as normal. I used to wait for phone calls that never came. I don't do that anymore. Russell spoke carefully. Grandpa, why did you let us stay so long if you were going to kick us out anyway? I wasn't testing you. You're children. That wouldn't be fair. I was testing your mother, giving her opportunity to prove she wanted relationship rather than resources. You were testing Mom? He processed this. The dinners, the questions, the lawyer meeting. That was all planned? Yes, I documented everything. Not to hurt anyone, but to see the truth clearly. Maud hugged herself. Did we do something wrong? No. You believed what you were told. You're innocent in this. I looked at both of them. I'm not angry with you. Your mother made choices. I made choices. Eventually you'll make your own. That's how life works. So Mom lied to us? About the money? About Grandma being sick? About some things, yes. Russell's voice dropped. Can we still visit after this when we're older? When you're ready to build something real? When you want relationship for its own sake, not because of this house or money? Yes, absolutely. My door will be open. Maud whispered, I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe what you can verify. Ask questions. Seek evidence. Think for yourselves. You're smart enough to do that now. I stood, left them sitting there, gave them space to process. Inside, I heard Mitchell and Lula arguing, voices muffled but angry, blame ricocheting between them, panic in every exchange. "This is your fault. You pushed too hard." "I pushed? You asked for 75,000. You said he'd help us. How was I supposed to know he was recording everything?" I closed my study door, shut out the noise. Tomorrow was August 30th, the day before the deadline, the day before everything changed permanently, the day before justice completed its arc. August 31st arrived with clear skies and the kind of crystalline light that makes San Diego famous. Not a cloud visible, the ocean calm, reflecting morning sun like hammered silver. I stood on the terrace at sunrise, coffee in hand, watching dawn paint the horizon in shades of gold and pink. Behind me, the house hummed with activity. Footsteps on stairs, boxes scraping across floors, muffled voices coordinating the loading, the sounds of departure. They were leaving. Finally. Permanently. I didn't turn to watch. Not yet. This moment belonged to me, peace before the final confrontation. The last conversation before they drove away, and my life returned to being mine alone. The ocean was calm, waves gentle against the rocks below, steady, constant, indifferent to human drama. So was I. 4 months ago, they'd arrived uninvited, with luggage and entitlement and the certainty that biology granted them access. Today they left required by law, with boxes and bitterness and the knowledge that family means nothing without commitment. Justice has a timeline, a proper structure, a beginning and an end. Today was the end. I sipped my coffee slowly and savored the bitterness. The morning air smelled of salt and freedom. Behind me, a door opened. Closed, footsteps. Someone carrying something heavy. Furniture being moved, belongings being loaded. I gave them space. Let them work. They'd refused my help, refused my presence. Fine. I stood here and watched the ocean instead. Let them feel my absence as I'd felt theirs for 8 years. Eventually, I entered the house, walked through rooms slowly, deliberately. The guest bedroom stripped completely, no sheets on the bed, no clothes in the closet, no evidence they had ever occupied the space. Living room furniture returned to original positions, angles corrected, my books back on the shelf in proper order, kitchen cleared of their specialty foods, their vitamins, their constant evidence of habitation, physical traces of their occupation disappearing, box by box. The house reclaiming itself. Mitchell and the kids were loading the SUV in the driveway. I watched from the front window. Methodical packing, Tetris with cardboard, Russell carrying boxes, Maud managing smaller items, Mitchell directing, his voice carrying through the open door. "Stack those tighter. We need to fit everything in one trip." They'd rented a small trailer, attached it to the SUV. Smart. Everything they'd accumulated in 4 months needed to go. Lula wasn't with them. I found her in the living room, standing by the window that faced the ocean, the same view I'd watched from the terrace. She stood motionless, arms wrapped around herself. Defensive posture, protective. I stopped in the doorway, waited. She sensed my presence, turned slowly. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry now, past crying, into the numb acceptance that follows devastation. "Dad, can we talk? One more time, please?" I entered the room, stood several feet away, gave her space but also maintained mine. "Of course. Maybe we can start over, fresh beginning." Her voice carried desperate hope. "Forget everything that happened, begin again." I let her finish, respected her final words even though I couldn't honor her request. Even though the answer was predetermined by months of behavior, documented and undeniable. "Lula, you didn't come here because you missed me. That's not... Please, let's have honesty now, at the end if nowhere else." I kept my voice gentle but firm. "You came because you saw the house, saw the value, saw opportunity. That's what brought you back after 8 years of silence." Her face reddened, defense mechanisms activating. "I did care. I was worried about you. We had history, complicated history. It wasn't simple. I gave you 3 months, a genuine chance to prove otherwise." I held her gaze. "You asked about money 17 times. You inquired about my well-being exactly 0 times. You never asked how I was sleeping, how I was feeling, what I did with my days. Just money, always money. That's not fair. You're reducing everything to facts, to evidence. Yes, That's what I'm doing. Because feelings lie, Lula. Feelings justify anything, but actions tell truth. I'm your daughter. Her voice rose, cracked. Doesn't that mean anything? Blood means something. Biology doesn't make family. Choice makes family. Consistency, presence, care. I paused, let the words settle. You chose 8 years ago. You chose silence. You chose to keep my grandchildren from me. You chose absence. I respected that choice, never harassed you, never showed up uninvited. I let you have the distance you wanted. So that's it? Tears started now, flowing freely. After everything, you're just done? You're throwing us away? Now I'm making my choice. I choose boundaries. I choose honesty. I choose peace over obligation. You'll regret this? Her voice turned hard through the tears. You'll die alone, old and alone in this big empty house with no one who cares about you. I've been alone, Lula. I know what it feels like. And I learned something important. Alone is different from lonely. Very different. I stepped closer, met her eyes directly. I was lonely when I had a daughter who wouldn't speak to me. I was lonely when I called and got silence. I was lonely at my birthday party of 1, but now I'm just alone, and alone I can handle. She stared at me, understanding finally penetrating. This wasn't negotiation, wasn't manipulation, wasn't a test she could pass with the right words. This was ending, final, complete. You're my daughter biologically, I said quietly. But family is more than blood. It's commitment, daily choice, maintain connection. You didn't commit. You didn't choose. You didn't maintain. Neither will I. I walked to the front door, opened it, the gesture clear. I wish you well, Lula, genuinely. But I wish you well somewhere else. She walked past me slowly, paused at the threshold. You've become someone I don't recognize. Good. The person you knew waited for scraps of affection. The person I am now demands respect or accepts absence. Huge improvement. She continued to the driveway. Mitchell saw her, approached quickly, arm around her shoulders, guiding her to the passenger seat. Russell approached me, stood at the bottom of the porch steps. Grandpa, thanks for being honest with us, for telling us the truth. You deserved honesty. Maybe, when we're older, we can visit, if you still want us to. I descended the steps, put my hand on his shoulder, looked at him directly. When you're ready to build something real, when you want relationship for its own sake, not because of this house or inheritance, when you're independent enough to make your own choices, yes, absolutely, my door will be open. I'll remember that. Maud stood by the car, silent, but she met my eyes across the driveway. Small nod. Not reconciliation, not agreement, but recognition. Acknowledgement that something had happened here that was bigger than any of us. She got in the vehicle without speaking. Mitchell slammed the trunk closed, checked the trailer hitch, walked to the driver's side, paused with his hand on the door handle. This was all calculated, wasn't it? From the moment we arrived, you had this planned. I had evidence gathered, actions documented, truth revealed. What you did with that opportunity was your choice entirely. Lula was right. You're cold, perhaps. But I'm cold in my own home. You were entitled in someone else's home. Significant difference. He got in the vehicle, slammed the door. The engine started, loud in the morning, quiet. I stood on my porch, arms at my sides, watched them back down the driveway, turn onto the street, drive away. Watched until the SUV and trailer disappeared around the corner, until the sound of the engine faded completely, until nothing remained but morning silence and ocean breeze and the empty driveway stretching before me. The house was quiet, different from lonely. This was peace. I stood there for several minutes, just breathing, feeling the weight lift, the obligation dissolve, the performance end. Footsteps on the sidewalk. Mamie approaching, walking from her house 3 doors down. She carried a small plant in a terracotta pot, something flowering, something alive. I saw them leaving, thought you might want company. She reached the porch, or solitude. Either is fine, I can go if you prefer. I gestured toward the terrace. Company sounds good. We walked through the house together, out to the terrace where I'd started the morning. Sat in the chairs I'd positioned there months ago, back when the house was new to me, and I was planning everything that just concluded. Was it hard? She asked quietly. Watching them go? No, it was fair. I looked at the ocean, the constant waves. Justice often looks hard from outside, but when you're the one who lived through everything that led to it, it's just appropriate conclusion. She studied my face. You look settled, like something heavy lifted. Exactly that, like I've been holding my breath for months and can finally exhale. What happens now? Now? I smiled. Now I live, my life, my terms, my house. No performance, no testing, no documentation, just living. I'm glad you're my neighbor, Rufus. She set the plan on the table between us. Real community beats fake family every time. Yes, it does. Thank you for being here, for understanding. We sat together in comfortable silence for a while, watching the ocean, watching the morning unfold. No need for constant conversation, just presence, authentic connection. Eventually she left, returning to her own home and schedule. I stayed on the terrace, let the morning pass without agenda, without purpose beyond existing peacefully. That evening, as sunset approached, I sat at my computer in the study, opened Facebook, thought carefully about what I wanted to say, how to articulate what I'd learned, typed slowly. Sometimes the best family is the one you choose, not the one you're born into. Grateful for authentic connections and honest boundaries. New chapters begin when old obligations end. 4 months of testing revealed truth I needed to see. Biology creates relatives. Choice creates family. Choose wisely. I read it 3 times, edited slightly, made sure the tone was philosophical, not bitter, reflective, not vengeful, posted it. Within 5 minutes, Mamie commented, "Wise words, neighbor. Welcome to your new chapter." Others followed, former colleagues, neighbors, people from the yacht club I'd gotten to know. Supportive words, understanding. No one asking for details. The post said enough. I closed the laptop, returned to the terrace as sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Same view, same ocean, same house. But everything different, everything transformed. The house was quiet. My life was mine. The weight of obligation lifted completely. The performance ended, the documentation complete, the justice served. I raised my coffee cup, switched to wine now, a good Cabernet I'd been saving, to the horizon. Silent toast to justice, to boundaries, to chosen peace, to authentic connection over biological obligation. The ocean answered with steady waves, constant, reliable, like truth, like justice, like the peace that comes from living aligned with your values. Behind me, the house waited, empty of intruders, empty of entitled guests, full of possibility, full of space for whatever I chose to do next. My phone buzzed, Mamie's comment glowing on the screen, others joining, real community forming, people who chose connection, who maintained it, who understood that presence matters more than DNA. This is what family should be. This is what connection looks like when it's earned, not assumed. I took a deep breath, let it out slowly, completely. Justice was complete. The strategy executed perfectly. The evidence had proven decisive, the boundaries established and maintained, but more than justice, freedom, more than victory, peace. The life I'd built carefully over 40 years of law practice had been invaded, tested, stressed. Now it was mine again, reclaimed through patience and documentation and the willingness to choose peace over false harmony. Life began again, on my terms, with chosen family, in this house that was finally completely undeniably mine. The ocean reflected the last light of day. Tomorrow would bring new sunrise, new possibilities, new chapter without the weight of obligation or the performance of false connection. I smiled, real smile, deep satisfaction. Finally, if you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.